Welcome to Obi-Wan Studios. Today we are reviewing the LEGO Star Wars set number 75357, the Ghost and Phantom 2. And this set is regarded by many as being one of, if not the best LEGO Star Wars release of all of 2023. And in today's review, we are going to find out just what makes the Ghost and Phantom 2 such a phenomenal set. Now, the Ghost and Phantom 2 released on September 1st of 2023, of course, as part of the Ahsoka wave for $160 US. The set comes with 1,394 pieces and in total 5 minifigures. And those 5 minifigures are First Officer Hawkins, Lieutenant Beta, General Hera Syndulla, Jason Syndulla, and Chopper. Now, the one weakness of the Ghost and Phantom 2 overall is in fact the minifigure selection. It's nothing that stellar, although the General Hera Syndulla minifigure is absolutely brilliant, which we're going to get into just shortly here, but that's really the one weakness when it comes to the set. The two builds are just phenomenal, that has to be said. Taking a look at a few other box details before we get into the minifigures and the actual builds themselves, the back of the box is absolutely gorgeous and very reminiscent of the scene in episode 4 of Ahsoka where Hera, Jason, and Chopper are going to the Ghost inside of the hangar to go look for Ahsoka and Sabine. Just a really great look of the box art there that does have that reference and call back to the actual show. And then on the front of the box, one other detail that was really cool when the set was first announced is that it actually shows in the background very faintly Shin Hati Starfighter in LEGO form chasing after the Ghost and Phantom, which we know would be its own set that would release in the future. Now, it must be said, I think the box art for this set is one of the best we've seen from LEGO Star Wars in quite a long time. Everything about it just makes you want to pull it off of the shelf and build it. Even that teal color that represents the Ahsoka sub-theme really complements the color palette of the Ghost and everything else LEGO chose for this set overall. Just one of the best LEGO Star Wars sets I honestly can remember in a very long time. It just looks absolutely fantastic in terms of that box art. But with that all said, let's get right on into those minifigures. Our first minifigure is First Officer Hawkins, and he is what I consider to be a slightly underappreciated minifigure in this set. Now, this is due to two different details that LEGO got right when it comes to his uniform that I wouldn't have really expected them to have added at least one of these in. Now, the first one is the patch on the right side of his chest with the blue dot. Now, if you can get past the fact that the blue dot should really be centered on that patch like it is in the show, then it's a really great addition for the minifigure, but upon looking at it and comparing it to the actual in-universe version, it really should be centered, and it clearly isn't on the minifigure, so a slight dock there for the misprint in terms of that design detail, but overall, really great that they added that part in. But the other detail that I am very surprised that LEGO added in are the two kind of metal studs on the right side of his belt, and I had to actually go back to the show and find a great scene with him in it where you can actually make out those two studs on his belt in the show. So hey, props to LEGO for adding that detail in there. I wouldn't have put it past them at all to have just done the standard brown belt with the belt buckle in the middle and left it at that. Overall, I think First Officer Hawkins is a good minifigure. He's a minor character in the show that I think a lot of people would have been fine just never getting a minifigure of. However, in the context of the show and kind of a lot of the scenes with Hera, he just makes sense being added to the set to just give as an additional minifigure. Up next is Lieutenant Beta, and he's another minor character in the show, but I just think it's really cool that we get a Mon Calamari in one of the New Republic flight suits, which by the way looks just striking in the blue and white color scheme. He also comes with waist and leg printing, which is just another nice touch. Of course, the head printing as well on the Mon Calamari head looks really great. Overall, a really good looking minifigure. Another minor character though that just is one that is nice to have, but not one a lot of people would have been just dying to have gotten in the set. Moving along now to General Hera Syndulla, who is just the absolute highlight when it comes to the minifigures in this set. I think LEGO did a phenomenal job capturing all the details of her leather jacket with that Sherpa lining at the top. It just looks like a leather jacket, which is a really great thing to see in the design of this minifigure. The patch with the 5 red dots on it also looks great. She comes with waist and leg printing as well. all looks really, really good. Moving along now to the back of the minifigure as well, one other detail when it comes to the leather jacket is what I believe to be the Ghost logo on there, which you see in the show as well. Now, upon doing further research, this logo, when Dave Filoni designed it, is a bit of a callback to the Pittsburgh Penguins and the mask of his favorite goaltender being Michel Dion. A really cool detail that I never knew about until I was doing research for this video, but kind of nice to see a hockey nod, as I'm Canadian, to the show and this design of, again, what I believe to be the logo for the ghost that Hera has on her jacket in the actual TV show. Her goggles being printed on her head cap, I think, really just ties her whole outfit all together, and the printing on her leku as well, I think, just looks really well done overall for the figure, just some extra details there. Now, the one thing that I think would have made this figure an 11, a 12 out of 10 would have been arm printing. Had they done that, man, this would for sure be the best Hera minifigure. It still is the best Hera minifigure we've ever gotten, but it just would have made this minifigure just over the top fantastic. It's worth noting as well that Hera does come with a second face that's a little bit more of an angry, ready to go into battle face. Our next minifigure is Hera's son, Jacen Syndulla, and this is the very first time we are seeing him in a LEGO Star Wars minifigure form. Unfortunately, when it comes to Jacen, there is just one glaring issue that is a bit confusing as to how LEGO missed it, and it has to do with his hairpiece. In Star Wars Rebels and in the Ahsoka show, his hair is green, which is a nod to Hera being his mother. However, the minifigure has brown hair. And it's just really frustrating when LEGO couldn't get this detail right on what is a rather important character to Star Wars and these characters overall. Obviously, it's Hera's son, but then when you look at First Officer Hawkins, a character that really no one really was dying for to get in a LEGO minifigure form at all, and they get those two little studs on his belt right. They get that small of a detail right on a minifigure that no one cares about that much, and then on Jacen, they completely get his hair wrong. I just don't understand how LEGO released this set with missing that detail. It just boggles my mind. Jacen's hair being the wrong color in the second iteration of a LEGO Star Wars Ghost is just so ironic when you take a look back at the original LEGO Star Wars Ghosts for Star Wars Rebels, and his dad, Kanan Jarrus' hair originally was black when that set first released, and of course his hair in the show is brown. Now, LEGO did go and update that minifigure to actually have brown hair. Now that black-haired Kanan Jarrus figure is just worth a crazy amount of money because it's extremely rare and just a wrong design choice on LEGO's part. But as of right now, quite a few months after LEGO actually released the Ghost in Phantom 2, they haven't done the same thing in updating Jacen's hair to be green. Hopefully they do, but again, just one real knock against this minifigure that every time I look at him, I just can't unsee. It doesn't look like Jacen to me. If his hair's not green, and it's one of the first things you see when you look at the minifigure, it just doesn't look like Jacen. So unfortunately, LEGO definitely missed the mark on this minifigure. He does come with a second face, but again, overall, not a great minifigure. And last, but certainly not least, is everyone's favorite little droid, Chopper. Now, this is another minifigure that's been updated for the Ahsoka show from his Rebels counterpart, but unfortunately, this is a case of one step forward and two steps backwards when it came to the redesign and refresh of Chopper's minifigure form. So let's discuss the step forward first, and that's in the printing overall. I think that looks really great, and the addition of back printing on this new Chopper minifigure is a very nice but much needed touch. Now, the two steps backwards are, number one, the white circular stud that's on top of Chopper's head. This is supposed to represent that white antenna that you'll see him have, but the stud just looks too big for a minifigure form with Chopper there. It just looks out of place and makes him look a little, I don't know. He looks almost a little bit too top heavy when he's supposed to be a little bit short and stubbier. I would have much rather that have been, of course, a print, but I think that's a little bit of wishful thinking. I just overall think he would have looked better without that white stud being included. Now, the second is the contrast between his legs and the white torso. When you look at Chopper, he's definitely a bit of a mashup of parts and not symmetrical by any means. His left leg, when you take a look at it, has a lot more gray in it than his right. So what I think would have made Chopper look a lot better and just a bit less jarring between that white and gray contrast would have been giving his left leg that gray color scheme and then moving on and giving him a different right leg and it being printed all in white. I think that would have made him look a lot more accurate and kind of just brought the figure a lot more together. But overall, still a pretty decent figure for Chopper that is a fan favorite one to have in the set. Looking at the minifigures altogether, of course, Hera is the absolute highlight. The addition of First Officer Hawkins and Lieutenant Beta, I think, are nice additions. A lot of people will say they are throw-ins, and while they are those minor characters, I think the minifigures are actually pretty good. However, Jason especially, and to a lesser extent Chopper, are a bit disappointing, and when you have two characters like that are so important to the overall show and just really important characters in Star Wars, Jason, you know, is going to be a very important character for a lot of material to come. The fact that they just didn't get his green hair right, that's a big knock on the set in my mind. Taking a look at the builds now, starting off with the Ghost, and man, I just think LEGO absolutely nailed the design of the Ghost. The shape is perfect. It looks just like the ship does in universe. And if you look at any photos, compare it to that 2014 version of the Ghost and the way that was shaped, it's just weird, and it serves to make this Ghost, especially because it's a redesign, just that much better and that much, I think, more appreciated by the fans, and the fact that LEGO really nailed the shaping this time around with the Ghost. Getting into some of the details here, starting off with the very front of the Ghost. You have two different windscreens here. The very front one is for that forward mounted gun, and that is a printed piece. It looks absolutely fantastic. The white is very crisp and clear and just matches the overall rest of the ship very well. Now the top one is for the actual pilot seat for Hera, and that isn't a print, it is a sticker. So as long as you get the sticker placed on there right and it looks good, it's going to serve the purpose just fine and adding some really nice detail. However, my one issue here is that when you compare the printed front piece and that top sticker one, the front print almost serves to making the sticker detailing look worse because it's not as bright of a white the way the sticker is. It's more of a faded gray, so it just doesn't transition just as nicely as the front cockpit does with the actual printing. So that's one detail there that I really wish LEGO just would have given us two prints. If you're going to print one of them, just go that little bit of an extra mile and print the second piece as well. Now that forward cannon also serves for a major play feature on the Ghost. If you tilt the forward cannon side to side, that is actually what will fire those spring-loaded shooters, which are tucked very nicely underneath the Ghost. When you take some of the spring-loaded shooters on other sets, they just look a little bit unnatural, and for the sacrifice of having play features, it takes away from the overall look and aesthetic of the set. But on the Ghost, they're hidden very nicely underneath there, so I think they did a really good job incorporating the overall detail. Flipping the Ghost over again, utilizing that forward-mounted gun to fire off those spring-loaded shooters, you can just see exactly how the mechanism works. One complaint I do have when it comes to the way those spring-loaded shooters fire with the gun is when you're moving the Ghost around, if you bump that gun at all, it's probably going to fire off one of, if not both of those shooters. And actually, when I was filming this review, that's exactly what happened to me. And one of these spring-loaded shooters just went flying somewhere in the room, and I still haven't found it. So that's one kind of thing that's a little bit annoying when it comes to the Ghost, but overall, a really great play feature. While we are looking at the underside of the Ghost, it's the perfect time to take a look at the landing gear. Now you can see that there are 3 points of connection for the landing gear. It's non-retractable, it has no additional play features, it does the job just fine, and the Ghost feels nice and sturdy when it's placed on a smooth surface. However, if you want the Ghost flying and don't want the landing gear underneath it, you will just have to remove the 3 pieces of landing gear. Overall, very basic, but does the job just fine. Flipping the Ghost back over and taking a look at the side angle of it, one design choice I really appreciate is the use of those inverted pieces for the outermost edge. It really does a nice job of breaking up the top and underside of the Ghost, and of course, instead of having all of the exposed studs, you actually have those inverted ones. It just changes things up and is a very nice touch in the overall design and aesthetic of the ship. Moving along to the back of the Ghost, and I think this is actually my favorite angle to look at the ship. I just think the detailing with the engines is so beautiful, especially taking the contrast of the silver, black, and then that sparkly metallic almost blue for the actual engine output. Oh, it's just super striking and very eye-catching. I think overall, this whole design of the back section of the Ghost looks really fantastic when it comes to those engines. Just absolutely nails what it looks like in universe. At the back of the Ghost, of course, you have the docking port for the Phantom 2, and on the original, it did look a lot bare and empty, and was very jarring, and the ship clearly looked like it was missing something the way it was designed before. I think they also did a really great job in designing this section to not look quite as empty, but you just can't help that it definitely looks like there is something that's supposed to go there. It just doesn't quite look as bad without the Phantom 2 on it in this version of the Ghost, in my opinion. Turning the Ghost back to its side, we are going to start going over some additional play features and interior details. Now, on each side of the Ghost, below those docking ports, you have 2 ramps where the minifigures can go up and into the ship. Of course, in universe, that should be on the front of the Ghost, but at the scale they chose for this play scale version of the model, I don't really think there would have been a great way to make that look good and have the proper play features as well. So I think this is a passable option for the side. I can't fault LEGO for really doing this at all. Of course, if we were to get, for example, a UCS set, which I really hope LEGO does make, especially perhaps after they see the success of this set, definitely that loading ramp needs to be on the very front of the Ghost. That has to be something they add in. But for the play scale, I think this is more than fine. In terms of accessing the front cockpit of the Ghost, you actually can pull out that entire front gun section as it's held in by 2 small clips. Looking at the detached portion now, you can see how you can place a minifigure inside of it in order to man that forward gun. As for the actual gun controls, interestingly enough, they went with an Inquisitor lightsaber hilt as part of the design, which is just a really cool way of utilizing that piece. In terms of the rest of the detailing for that front gun section, there is some sticker detailing inside which just overall completes the look. Moving back to the main part of the Ghost, with that front cockpit section detached, you now have room to place Hera inside to pilot the Ghost, and you can see some details of the interior of the pilot's position there. Now, placing Hera in there is a little bit of a tight fit if you don't remove the entire top part to access the whole interior, which we're about to see in just a moment here, but even just removing the front section of the cockpit, you do have ample room to place her in there, although it just is a little bit difficult. Moving along now to the top part of the Ghost with that top mounted turret, if you want to place a minifigure inside to man it, you simply lift up that bubble kind of cockpit, place them in there, and then close it. There are no actual studs to hold the minifigure down, they're just kind of kept in place there just by virtue of the overall design. However, one thing I did notice, and if play features are something you care about, if you want to place a minifigure like Hera in there, for example, who's a bit taller with her headpiece, you actually have to place her in there seated. She won't fit in standing up, the lid won't close all the way down for that glass kind of bubble part of the cockpit of the turret. Also, when it comes to the turret, it does move up and down, but it will only face forward. On the original Ghost, that top-mounted turret did spin around 360 degrees, so that is one play feature that is a bit different and maybe not as great compared to the original Ghost. LEGO just went with a bit of a different design overall when it comes to this top-mounted turret. When it comes to accessing the rest of the interior, that top middle section with that turret on it actually comes right off. It's only held in place by a couple of stud connection points. Now let's take a look at the interior of the Ghost. When it comes to building the interior of the Ghost, you might be confused at first as to what these 2x1 tiles are with these center studs, but these are actually meant so that Chopper has a designated place to be placed inside of the interior of the Ghost. Just a really nice touch that they thought of that in order to place him inside of the Ghost properly. As for the rest of the interior details, each side features these entranceways to the loading ramp and the docking ports, features those translucent yellow bricks with the red tile and the yellow tile with that caution stickering on it. Looks really sharp overall, I think. Then on the right side here, you see a small control panel. Height-wise for a minifigure, I think this was just designed for Jason, as a taller minifigure isn't going to just be placed there. I mean, just look at it. You barely have any room. Turning to the other side of the interior, you have a small crate with a Meilungron fruit inside of it. That's just a nice callback to the Star Wars Rebels show. And then there also is a little sink build in there too. Lastly, for the interior, there are just a couple of smooth tiles as stairs just to get into the pilot seat where Hera would be sitting normally. Now that the interior of the Ghost is covered, it's time to move on to the Phantom 2 build. And I think the Phantom 2 looks really great. All of the sticker detailing, while might be annoying to some people, it really does add a lot of extra details. I mean, it just enhances the overall look of the ship, and honestly, I wouldn't trade the stickers for anything else. I think they all look great. Perhaps one of my favorite angles of the Phantom 2 is where you can see the engines incorporated underneath the wings. I think those 2 smooth studs on either side in that blue color just looks really sharp overall and has some nice contrast. While we're looking at the back of the Phantom 2 here as well, it's worth noting that it does have a small front-loaded crate on the back. Now this serves as a dual purpose for play features. In the actual in-universe Phantom 2, this of course is the loading ramp to get into the Phantom 2 or just the docking port. Now, in the scale that they designed the Phantom 2, you're just not getting a minifigure inside of there, right? So it's either for a play feature to have so you can pretend there is a loading ramp for the Phantom 2, or you can place a couple of guns, binoculars inside of there, and it's just a nice storage crate for the Phantom 2 as well. Of course, when it comes to the Phantom 2, one major feature everyone is going to be looking for is the ability to attach Chopper to it. I know in the Ahsoka show, probably my favorite scene with Chopper is where he's arguing back and forth with Hera in the middle of a battle, accusing her of taking all of his stuff, and that's why he can't find the tracking device. It's just really fun to always get scenes with Chopper in it. And with this build of the Phantom 2, again, size does play a part in exactly how attaching Chopper works. Now, if this was a larger Phantom build, you would normally expect to be able to attach Chopper's full body and place it within the Phantom docked nice in there. But with this smaller build of the Phantom, you essentially have to go the old school way of attaching astromech droids to ships and just taking Chopper's head off and placing it in the designated spot on the side of the ship that's just obviously meant for Chopper's head to go. I really don't think LEGO could have designed it in any other way that would have scaled properly and made Chopper look good with his full body placed inside of the Phantom 2. He would have had to have been more centered perhaps, and then the Phantom might have been a little too long. Overall, I think this is just the best way of going about it. Sure, it's not the way many of us would have been the most happy with, but I think he looks great on the side there, and of course with the scale and everything, it works. In terms of actually accessing the interior on the Phantom 2, the entire front portion of the cockpit actually tilts forward. There you can see the interior and the use of brown in there just to provide some nice color contrast for the Phantom 2's interior. Now, if you want to place a minifigure inside of it, let's just say Hera, because she's who we really see piloting the Phantom 2 in the Ahsoka show, you really have to be careful with how you place her in there. You have to actually lay her down quite a bit. If she's remotely sitting up, the top of the cockpit is not going to close and it's not going to look great. That's just due to the size and scale that they built the Phantom 2 in. And that's kind of the theme with the Phantom 2 build here. I know a lot of people were complaining that the Phantom 2 just feels small. And I mean it is, but there is a very good reason for the size of the Phantom 2, and that's when it comes to docking the Phantom 2 on this Ghost build here. Now, to dock the Phantom 2 on the Ghost, you simply see those two connection points in the docking space on the Ghost, and you place it right in. And man, when the Phantom 2 is attached to the Ghost, does this ever feel like a complete set design to you? I mean, it's seamless the way the Ghost goes from the Ghost to the Phantom. There's just no real gaps. It just looks like it fits perfectly in there, and that's the way it honestly should be. I think the entire color scheme of the Phantom 2 too, with the use of the yellow and sand blue in the stickering, really complements and transitions over nicely to the Ghost, which also uses those colors. You just don't have that sand green on the Phantom 2 like you do on the rest of the Ghost. And looking at the Phantom 2 docked with the Ghost, this is where the whole scale issue of the Phantom 2 just is irrelevant in my mind. They designed the Phantom 2 to work perfectly with this Ghost model. It's in scale perfectly and works really great. You still can fit a minifigure inside of there, but more importantly, it looks great and feels like it fits, and there's no weird proportions when it really comes to the Phantom 2. I think they just did a really great job in making it a full-on version of the set. And if they built a Phantom 2, for example, as a completely separate set, much like they've done in the past, of course you'd expect it to be a bigger build, have a bit more of an interior, a bit more detailing, but that's not what this is. This is a Phantom 2 specifically designed to complement this Ghost, and I think LEGO just really knocked it out of the park. It looks great from every angle attached to the Ghost, and this is just the ultimate way to display this set in my mind. Taking a look at the Ghost and Phantom 2 set as a whole, man, what a complete set. What a great set. I just feel like LEGO had an idea of what they wanted to do when it came to the set, and they pretty much executed it perfectly. When it comes to the minifigures, sure, I know some people are going to say that First Officer Hawkins and Lieutenant Beta are kind of maybe throw-ins just to bolster that minifigure count up from 3 to 5, but I actually think they're really great minifigures, and in the context of the Ahsoka show, they fit in just fine. I think it works. The bigger disappointment is Jason. I've mentioned it before in the video, but his hair being brown, I look at him, I don't see Jason. That's just, I'm sorry, but that's just how I feel. It's just such a big detail that for LEGO to get wrong is very disappointing, and the really only issue I have with what pretty much otherwise is a perfect set. The one thing I think LEGO should do that they did with the original Ghost is start producing green-haired versions of Jason and putting him in newer versions that are created for the Ghost. I think that would really make this set essentially perfect in my mind. And hey, Lego, what would be better if you do go down that pathway, which I really think you should? Offer free replacement hair pieces for Jason for anyone like me who bought this set and didn't get the accurate minifigure and the most accurate figure that we really should. I think that'd be great if Lego did that, and then that would take really the only issue with this set and go away with it. Because like I said, they got First Officer Hawkins' 2 little stud details on his belt right, but they couldn't get a bigger, more main character than him, his hair right. I mean, come on, Lego. You got to do better than that in my mind. But otherwise, that all said about Jason's hair, it's just a really great set. I really think it's a no-brainer to pick up and add to your LEGO Star Wars collection. If you're a fan of Star Wars Rebels, if you're a fan of the Ahsoka show, this really is a fantastic set. I think it offers really great value. And when, again, looking at it compared to that 2014 Ghost, man, the shaping and everything, this is just, it's so fantastic, and I just can't stress enough how great of a job LEGO did upgrading the model for the Ghost. It looks absolutely beautiful. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for tuning into this LEGO Star Wars review of the Ghost and Phantom 2. Please let me know your thoughts of the set in the comments down below. Do you have one of these? Do you plan on picking one of these up? Do you wish LEGO did anything differently? If you want to see me do a comparison between this 2023 version of Chopper and the one from 2014, let me know in the comments down below, because I've been thinking of making that video too, and it would be kind of cool just to get a brief comparison between those two figures. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for staying with me until this point. If you did, I really appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next LEGO Star Wars review.